Mitzi, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
I was born in the Bronx, but I grew up in Puerto Rico. I come from a very dysfunctional poor family. I'm the first one to graduate from college and postgraduate studies out of 57 first cousins.
What do you think are some of the most pressing issues facing the Latinx community today?
Well, I think that one that we kind of like touch upon is minority is one of the problems facing is the perception problem.
Just to talk about the kind of economic impact. And I found this data point. If the US Latinx market were a standalone economy, it would rank as the fifth largest economy in the world.
Wow.
Welcome to the AAVMC's On Air podcast. This podcast is a program of the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges Diversity Matters Initiative. The podcast explores various issues related to diversity and inclusion in the veterinary profession and provides the AAVMC an opportunity to offer ongoing diversity programming to our member institutions as well as all veterinary professionals. My name is Dr. Lisa Greenhill, and I'm the Chief Organizational Health Officer here at AAVMC. On today's episode of the show, we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month with the Latinx Veterinary Medical Association. The term Latinx first appeared in usage around 2004 and began appearing in the scholarly literature around 2013 in a Puerto Rican journal as a pushback to the gender binaries that exist in the Spanish as well as most Romance languages. In a previous show featuring Latin American deans, we used the term Latine, which is also a non-binary alternative. We're going to be using Latinx today because that is the name chosen by the LVMA. Now, with respect to data, I want to share a bit of that. Roughly about 6% of practicing veterinarians in the United States identify as Latinx. And within the DVM student body, which is kind of the predictor of kind of what the future looks like in the US, students identifying as Latinx and or Hispanic represent about 11% of our student population. This is among the fastest growing demographic
Yeah.
population in veterinary medicine. And today, to discuss the LVMA and VetMed, I'd like to welcome LVMA President Dr. Mitzi Vargas. Hello, Mitzi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lisa, for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here. And I love that you started with facts and stats because a lot of people are blind to the facts that we are a fast growing minority in the United States as a consumer power. But in our profession specifically, right now, 5%. I graduated in 94. It was way less. I can
Yeah,
tell you that. I
yeah,
can tell you that there's been an acceleration in the past, probably the past, 15 years.
yeah.
That's what I see. And so I'm very happy that for Hispanic Heritage Month, this I feel is very apropos. The timing is perfect to make an appearance at your the OG podcast, the original one. So I'm very
Yes,
very
yes.
happy to be here.
Great, great. So, as is our custom on the show, Mitzi, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Well, I was born in the Bronx, but I grew up in Puerto Rico, and in Puerto Rico, there's no vet school, so I did the pre-vet program at the University of Puerto Rico. I come from a very dysfunctional poor family. I'm the first one to graduate, from college and postgraduate studies out of 57 first cousins. So you can imagine it's a very, 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 very large family. And education was not, as a matter of fact, when I said I wanted to be a vet at 7 years, that everybody had tried to dissuade me, even the counselor at high school, trying to apply for medical school instead of vet
Mhm.
school, thinking there's no future. The socioeconomic status in Puerto Rico, and at that time, we're going back almost 40 years, it was such that pets were not a priority,
Yeah.
and that a veterinarian, could make a living, but not to the point to pay all the, can you imagine all the loans and everything that you would have to take to get out of of the country and study. So because of that, everybody dissuaded me, but I've been always stubborn and determined. And if I could have a lot of defects, with one virtue is that I have grit. And I said, well, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, and faith. And I didn't know how I'm gonna do it, and but I did it. By the grace of God, doors open, and people bless me. Veterinarian named Dr. Hernandez. He passed away a long time ago, but he had gone to Tuskegee University,
Hmm.
technically black college, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of that, but he served in the military, as Puerto Ricans do. There's a lot of history of
Yeah.
Puerto Ricans going to military just to pay for schools. And I thought
Gotcha.
about that, except I'm a pacifist. I'm like, and also I'm a little lazy, so I don't like to exercise too much. But I said, but because he was my vet, I loved him. He was beloved in the community. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be like Dr. Hernandez. And he went to Tuskegee. So I said, if he went to Tuskegee, I'm going to Tuskegee. And I did. I went to Tuskegee University in Alabama. Now, I'll tell you, Lisa, that living in Puerto Rico, you're colorblind because we are all mixes. And I want
Yes.
to, in Puerto Rico, it's more of an ethnicity than race. So
Yes.
Puerto
Yes.
Ricans are all races, and you see it, and it's a blending, and nobody, I mean, discrimination or racism wasn't something I grew up with. It was completely foreign. And so when I went to Alabama and I studied in Tuskegee, which it was 99% black a
Yeah.
population and everything, and then I lived in Auburn, which is 99% white, you can imagine.
Culture
And
shock.
yes, it was a culture shock. Language, obviously, my maternal language is Spanish. So, to go to postgraduate with a very rudimentary English, you can imagine that. I did experience racism for the first time. I experienced, I started to like to realize my eyes were completely open about the
Mm.
situation.
Mm.
And so it was a really rough introduction, I have to say. But the good thing about myself is that I've always have good sense of who I am and an identity, my identity, and never been ashamed of my roots or my culture or anything. And if I said something wrong in the past tense, or the wrong word or the wrong pronunciation, and somebody made fun of me, then I just keep going and laugh it off too. And
Yeah.
then it didn't affect that much the self-esteem.
Sure.
Like I
Sure.
had a good mental domain, self-control, and also like I said, the identity. So
Yeah.
but it was a rough start, but I graduated, and then I didn't go back to Puerto Rico. I stayed in Florida. That's what I did.
Okay.
And then I practiced. I had the two worst jobs in the world. Didn't match. And then I thought, all my life, it was anticlimactic. All my life I wanted to be a vet. Then all of a sudden I
And
am a
now a
practice
vet?
vet, and I hate the jobs.
Oh
And
no.
so my fiance at the time said, well, if you know how it should be, because I had the model. I had worked and volunteered at Dr. Hernandez, who was beloved. It was the town veterinarian. His employees loved them. Everything, the culture was beautiful. And so I knew what could be possible. And then he said, well, why don't we just do it? And with his support and everything, we established Orchid Springs 2 years after graduation. I established my practice, and I sold it 3 years ago, 27
Wow.
years later.
Wow.
So it's a rich career. I've loved it. Every single minute of it. I still work, and just because I love it.
Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah, that's a big art.
Great, great. So, for listeners who might not know, September 15th is the start date of what we now know in the US as Hispanic Heritage Month. And the September start date is significant because it's also the anniversary of independence for several Latin American countries.
Mhm.
Why is it important for all of us to kind of remember and acknowledge this history?
Well, you're right. September 15 is the independence of about five different Central American countries, but also 16 is the Mexican independence, and I think it's 17 or 18 is Chile. So there's
Okay.
a lot of
Yeah.
the Latin American countries in the were independent from Spain, and they became a country. So when you
Yeah.
become a country, your culture is validated.
Yeah.
The whole heritage and the history of your country is validated. So being that we are a country, we are a quilt of different ethnicities. We all are American, but we do honor where we came from.
Sure.
And if you became a country, now you have a national identity. Now you have a national, certified bona fide culture.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that is distinctive from other ones. That's why it's a country. Then I feel like it's a wonderful thing that we get to have Hispanic Heritage Month starting September 15 until October 15. We get to remember. I feel like I said, I come from very, very difficult beginnings,
Yeah.
but they made me who I am. And the same way, we come from different countries, but they made us who we are. And so
Sure.
it's good to um,
Yes.
honor
Yeah.
that.
So a lot of, the corporate and public celebrations, they can be superficial, right? And
Yes.
so there are a lot of scholars that talk about, food, fabric, and festivals, right? There's lots of food, fabric, and festivals for Heritage Month. And, a lot of folks are like, they might think of, Mexican tacos and sombreros or, flamenco or whatever it is, like let's have potluck. And all of those things can be certainly well intended, but they also sometimes kind of make us all double down on maybe negative stereotypes.
Mhm.
So how can we move beyond, food, festival, and fabrics? Like, right, to engage in more authentic, meaningful celebration of our Latin American and Latinx colleagues.
I feel like should deepen that understanding of, if you're in a corporation, for example, identify those individuals that are coming. When you mention Mexico sombreros and tacos, that is one of the biggest misconceptions that the public has, is that we're all Mexicans.
Right.
And we're not. There's a tapestry of different countries that make United States Hispanic population, and the way that we say Latin is because we are also including our friends in Brazil, and
Hmm.
the Guyanas, the in South American, Central American, that speak French. So and in the Caribbean, so we're adding all of our friends
Yeah.
of those nations too. In the term Latin would be more, I guess, broader and more
Yeah.
encompassing. However, when you do just tacos and sombreros, you're celebrating Mexican
Mexican. Yeah.
heritage,
Yeah.
not Puerto Rican, certainly not Central American. So I feel like being aware, the fact that you and I, Lisa, are talking about this is wonderful,
Yeah.
because it's being aware that this is not all Mexicans. And so I think that the corporations can choose to highlight a little bit more, like Latin American people that are notable figures in science, or health, or veterinary medicine, for example, sports. Just so that they understand that they're very hardworking people, that we are capable. We have a lot of notable figures that are a Latin descendant, that have achieved a lot. And so,
Yeah.
why don't we shine that light on the achievements? And why don't we, that one of the corporations maybe try to ask even their own people, look in your employees or in your culture and identify those of where are you coming from, just the curiosity of asking, hey, where you come from, don't assume that are all the same, they're all the same, where do you come from, what's the type of food, what's the type of, I mean, the food is not a bad thing, it's just generalizing and assuming that we're all the same, that is a little bit off-putting, or a little bit disingenuous to just treat everybody like that. So I feel that focusing a little bit on achievements, or asking the people that work with you, that your colleagues, your employees, where they're from, what would be an appropriate thing to do, like to highlight their heritage,
Yeah.
like make it more personal, right, instead of like,
Mhm.
oh, we'll celebrate, well, did you know that Maria or Mitzi, my name is Mitzi, it's a little bit different, it's not Maria and Jose, or anything, but sometimes in the same organization people don't even realize that these people are Latin, and that's why the LVMA decided to be named the Latin Veterinary Medical Association instead of the
Yeah,
Hispanic Medical Association, to be more broad, to encompass all our friends that are in Brazil and all the other non-Spanish speaking countries, but also to honor the X. You can take it as a gender inclusive term, which is true,
sure.
but it's also a heritage. In my mind, it's a heritage inclusive thing, because you could be first generation, you could be second generation, you could be
Mm,
fourth
mm,
generation. You could
mm,
have never been to the country of origin of your
sure.
family, and not even speak Spanish because you grew up in America, but you still hold on to the traditions that were taught to you. And so, who am I to say that because you're fourth generation, you don't speak Spanish, you're not,
That you're not Latin. Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, I
So
love
the
that.
X is very inclusive because of that.
Love that, because I was going to ask. So, I mentioned at the top of the show about the term Latinx, and how, at least in like the literature that look at and I try to read a lot about, that it was kind of an outgrowth of, again, trying to move away from the Romance language binary language kind of thing, right? And being more gender
Yeah.
inclusive. And we've also, of course, over time, because language is constantly evolving. First it was Hispanic, then it was Latino and Latina, and then Latinx, and then there's also Latin, right, with an
Huh?
E, that also is really kind of trying to get that. But I really appreciate this notion that the X is even transcends just gender, but that it is more conceptually expansive to include, multi generations, folks that might be a little bit more removed from the country of origin, or however they fit into the Latin diaspora, right? And so that's a
Yes.
really amazing and kind of wonderful way to think about Latinx, because I also recognize that sometimes even within the community, the folks that I've talked to, and they're like, I don't like Latinx because it is a very gendered language, and culturally sometimes there can be very gendered things. So this idea that it transcends all of that is really, really
Yes.
cool. So congrats to LVMA for thinking that way. Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
Mhm.
Awesome. So, lots going on in the world. What do you think are some of the most pressing issues facing the Latinx community today?
Well, I think that one that we kind of like touch upon is when you mentioned the corporations, trying to reach out and everything, and when you mentioned that it's a fastest growing, minority, is one of the problems facing is the perception problem.
Yeah.
It is a perception problem. A lot of people perceive that maybe the Latinos are taking resources, or
Mm,
they like to get subsidies, or they are
hmm
they are in a class, in a lower class, and a taker class. But the reality of the case is that they're very hardworking people, as in thing, and that we are all classes, different classes, social
Yeah.
classes, and that there's a lot of professionals. So a lot of the
Yeah.
immigrants that are coming, they're actually the ones that could come from some of these countries. So these are all professionals. So somebody that might be working, right now, helping in a yard business, or in the hotel business. I have found professionals
Yeah.
working. They just recently coming to us, and that's just the jobs available. And they are, while they're working on their English, while they're working on contacts, and trying to validate their degrees, they are working certain jobs that perhaps people look down upon. But
Right.
the as a whole, very another misconception is that we don't have consumer power, but there is actually
Yeah.
big consumer power. And
Yeah.
another misconception in our industry, that we're not take care of the pets, or that the pet ownership is not important. But it's 61, the last thing that I read, was 61% of all Latino households have pets. So this, again,
Wow.
these are people that have consumption power. These are people that have pets. And so I feel like the veterinary industry could do a better job to reach them,
Yeah.
by making them feel a little bit more welcome. And the representation is important. If you don't know that there are Hispanic veterinarians or Latino veterinarians, then you may not know. I feel like in 2021, 2022, we had our first Hispanic veterinarian for the AVMA, Dr. Jose Arce. I think that was a big milestone. All definitely, I love that he's Puerto
Puerto
Rican,
Rican.
because I am. But I feel like that representation in our field could definitely improve. There's a lot of notable, very, very capable veterinarians out there that we don't highlight. So why don't, in veterinary, in Hispanic month, why don't AVMA and all these journals and everything just highlight some of
Yeah.
these people and the achievements that people
Sure.
have, that
Yeah.
they have had. And so I feel that as we expand our knowledge about the role of Latinx in our industry, that they are our clients, and that we need, like you say, the upcoming classes are even raising the bar in the amount of people, that I feel that is something that you can hide your head in the sand, or you can see the potential and
Yeah.
start working towards being more welcoming and inclusive to this big
Yeah.
category of clientele.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many misconceptions and stereotypes about brown and black folks not being willing, not either having the resources
Hmm.
to take care of pets, or not caring in a way that is, frankly, very white westernized kind of what pet ownership should look like, right? And I always am referring to various kind of social media accounts, and I'm like, if you are interested in seeing how extra black and brown people can be about our pets, like go look at these accounts, right?
Yes.
Like no, there's a whole population there. And just to talk a bit about the kind of economic impact, right? While you were talking, I just kind of did a quick search, and I'm like, and I found this data point. If the US Latinx market were a standalone economy, it would rank as the fifth largest economy in the world,
Wow.
right? So there's
Amazing.
not there's not a money issue here,
No, I'm shook with that. I'm telling you
right? There's
that.
not a money issue there. Please know that Latinx folks are buying all the things
Yes, yes, and
for
that
their
is,
kid, for
but
their
do you
pet,
see even the commercials,
right?
for products and everything, they do not have the representation. I mean,
Yeah,
like they don't use it. So I feel like there's so much, but a great potential for marketing the products, for even the same practices, to have one or two people available, that the Latinx, that people cannot connect. I tell you, I work obviously in Florida, Central Florida, which
Hmm.
when I came here 30 years ago, it was mostly homogeneous population of whites. It was about 90%. And now, obviously, you look at it and it's completely different. It's a complete different demographics in Central Florida, in Polk County, definitely diversify a lot. And so I was the standalone sore thumb Latina, you know, and but very blessed to have grown and be, embraced by this community, which is my community. I love Winter Haven, and so I have seen it grow. And in my team, I've always had Spanish speaking or people. And we've seen an increase in Brazilians moving to Central Florida. So the good news about them, because it is a romance language, we can at least understand each other.
Yeah.
I call it portuñol. But we do have in staff, we have now one person that is Brazilian, speaks Portuguese, and then we have several Spanish speaking employees. And that to me is a very wise decision for anybody in veterinary medicine, to have a diversified staff and have some points of contacts for your demographics,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
because I mean, let's be honest, Lisa, you know we're all humans and we have
Yeah.
our own preferences. And I would like to be I would feel more welcome when I
Yeah.
see somebody, see a place where there's some more people like me. I
Yeah.
might be
Yeah.
some uncomfortable, maybe because of my trauma from going to Alabama from Puerto Rico, but
Right. Right.
I like it when I see people like me and more diverse. It makes me feel more comfortable. So I
Well,
feel,
yeah.
that we should offer that to our clients.
Well, yeah, and also, think about all of your clients who are bringing their kids, right? And oftentimes we talk about, and I think that folks don't necessarily believe that even passive role modeling, just literally existing
Yeah,
for younger people to see you doesn't have the same impact. And it literally does. I was just talking to my sister yesterday about her little girl. Again, we're African American, but she's in a dance class and she's like, Mommy, I'm the only one in this class that looks like me. And so I don't know if I can do those things. Like, nobody is shaped like me, nobody looks like me. Like, can I really do this? And I'm like, literally, just existing in those spaces where little kids can see you and say, oh, this is possible, can
exactly.
be so transformative. And, to your point, you were talking earlier about the percentage of Latinx folks that own pets. And again, not only are in terms of population are Latinx peoples in the US the fastest growing population, but they're also the fastest growing pet owning
Mhm.
population as
Yeah.
well. Right. And
Yes.
so and you mentioned that earlier as well. So again, it's like, you know, don't also assume that they're not bringing their animals to the vet, right? Like
Exactly.
there's this weird kind of thing like, oh, but they don't come to the vet. No, maybe they just don't come to your practice.
Yeah.
Hello?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
maybe they just don't come to your practice, and maybe you should be asking why, right? And
Exactly.
so why are they choosing to go elsewhere when, oftentimes there's reasons. Some of it is proximity, but some of it is perceptions around the way that they're treated,
Hmm.
not being treated well in those experiences and all of that kind of stuff that goes with it. So for our non-Latinx listeners and viewers who really want to be better allies to the community, what are, one or two concrete things that they can do to support and celebrate the Latinx community, both during this month, but let's be very clear, all year round? Because these heritage months are great, but it's not like everybody just pops out for this one month and then we all go back underground.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's the same with Black History Month,
Right.
It's like and I think, being curious, be
Mm,
curious.
yeah.
Because don't assume, be curious. That's a very concrete thing that you can do. Because what we going back to the tacos and sombrero, ask, are you coming from Honduras? Or okay, what is the food that is Honduras? Go to a different Latin American restaurant, try their food. just be adventurous in that sense. There's a lot of wonderful culture. There's a lot of, the Latin American literature is very rich,
Mhm.
is very vast. We have, probably people remember, the House of Spirits, that was based on Isabel
Yeah.
Allende novel. And Isabel Allende is a Chilean author of many books, very wonderful books. She's probably the most known in Hollywood, but I will raise the bar and try to say Gabriel Garcia Marquez. He's a Colombian writer, and in high school I read 100 Years of Solitude. That's the
Mhm.
translation of his one of his best works. I believe he won the Nobel Prize with that one. But again, these are very, very good writers, descriptive, very interesting stories. And the reason I brought this both of them is because some of their stories encompass like generations, and
Yeah.
in their books you can see how even in their country and their families, that generation differences, and certain things that stay the same, traditions and differences, and how the characters navigate that. And so those are really wonderful. So if you really want to know, I definitely would be curious how many people that are Latin American have done this. I
Yeah.
love in
Yeah.
history, the one thing that I tell you, the history, Black History Month, I really enjoy reading about the achievements of people, especially because I studied in Tuskegee, and I've been more aware of the Black history and the Black contributions to our society and the world. And so I really would like the same for the
Yes.
Latinx
Yes.
community. I mean, even the fact that that movie, A Million Miles Away, that's the one, the first Mexican astronaut. That movie was very touching. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to just watch a movie, or a documentary about a notable figure, that was Jose Hernandez, the first Mexican American astronaut, and his the journey to become that. It was hard. He was persistent. It was a beautiful story. So I mean, in honor of that, yes, be curious and look at, again, go past the tacos and the sombreros. Look at different kinds of why is this country different, and what's their culture, and starts by looking at who you work with.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're right next to you and you didn't even know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, even taking it back to the fun movies like Coco or
yeah,
Encanto, or I mean, because even those two movies, there's certainly similarities and there's a thread that goes to them, but one is about Mexican culture and one is about Colombian. Like they're still different, right? And
yes, yeah,
so, really embrace that diversity. And even for those colleagues that are doing amazing things in veterinary medicine, like Nicole Bruno with BlendVet or Valerie Marcano with Possibilities. These are very visible Latinx folks, Afro Latinx folks that are veterinarians doing really amazing things in the
yeah.
profession. Support their work, right? Support
Yeah,
their work.
exactly. So, yeah, exactly. Support it, be curious about it, investigate. I think that's deepen your understanding, basically, of
Yeah.
what it is. So, and that's our job as Latinx VMA. That was our mission, was to really do that, to support the next generation that's coming up. Our job as an organization is really to support the students, the veterinary students. That's
Mhm.
our focus, because they are the next generation, because they are increasing in numbers, and we really want to create a veterinary community that is representative of what we're seeing outside, in our world, in our country, and again, like you mentioned, we're 6% right now of the veterinarian workforce, but that is bound to change
Yes,
because they
it's
are coming.
changing.
It is going to change, and if we translate the 61% Hispanic homes, that's about 20 million. I read about
Yeah.
20 million pets that are perhaps are underserved.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think education too is the key. The education for us, to be more aware, but education to our clientele too. A lot of these people, like you mentioned before, the misconception, we don't care about the pets. No, they do care about the pets. Perhaps they don't know that they have to, for example, have them on heartworm prevention, because no one has explained to them the importance, or
Right.
there's first generation here in this country, and they in their country they didn't do it. So if
Yeah.
you don't know that you need to do it, then again, you have to have someone there, role model for you, tell you, spend the time, educate that population
Yeah.
as well. And that's where I see that maybe there's a lot of room for improvement.
Yeah, yeah, patient education. So tell us a little bit more about some of the activities for LVMA.
So we really do a lot of mentorship. We do outreach programs. So we try to go to high schools, and we have a lot of speakers. We have a speaker list, and
Hmm.
either some of the board members, or we have connections in the industry. And when there's an activity, or a conference, or even as simple as going to high schools,
Yeah,
because like you said, the fact that we go and speak on day at a community college or a high school, that's enough to inspire a lot of people. The fact that,
yeah,
oh, there is a Hispanic vet,
yeah.
yeah, this is possible. It's just you showing the positivity. Also, the mentorship, we offer mentorship for the veterinary students. So they might have trouble in some of the schools. The minorities are very, very restricted. Some schools may have a bigger population, bigger diversity,
Sure,
and so those are not as handicapped as the ones that are, like you say, like
sure.
your niece, the only one in their class,
Yeah,
or the only one or two in the class of 80. So in those communities, they need outside help. They need,
yeah,
and so they can reach to LVMA, and we are available for them for mentorship, one-on-one, or for helping them with the professional development. We also, are an organization that is, our emphasis is in giving grants, on awarding these grants to notable students that are distinguishing themselves. And so, and we give them in during the Heritage Month. That's where all the applications are already available. And the we last year we had more than 400 applications for a
wow,
total of 10 grants.
wow.
Some of the grants were big, $10,000, and most of
Yeah,
them were like $2,000, $3,000. But we had an tsunami of applications, which is incredible. It was the
yeah.
biggest year ever last year. We hope to achieve even more this year. However, we've seen a little bit of a hesitancy of the support. And with the other corporations, we're hoping that this is just a temporary reflection of our political situation in the country,
Sure,
that perhaps the DI and the diversity programs are being a little bit of malign at the moment.
sure.
But that hopefully we're very positive and optimistic that it's gonna, it might be a smaller amount this year, but hopefully that the commitment of this corporations will continue. And that's
Continue.
just what
Sure.
we've seen that perhaps this year they're a little bit less support, but while they are redrawing the rules,
Sure. Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
more PC.
Yeah, yeah, more flexible, right? And so,
Yeah,
but I mean, recognizing that we've still got a plan for the future. And again,
exactly.
the fastest growing population, not just in vet med, but just in general, right? So,
Yes.
so as we start to close out this conversation, what is your and LVMA's call to action within the profession in vet med? What do you want? What's that number one thing that you want folks to take away from this conversation and take action?
Okay. Well, first of all, that our goal, our existence as an organization is to empower.
Mm.
the next generation of Hispanic and Latinx veterinarians. As an industry, I would really like to see the emphasis on achievement and of our own. I
Yeah.
believe that we have very notable Latinx colleagues that can lead, a little bit of more representation for our, community, the Latinx community. And I just want the whole industry to know that as the widest profession ever in veterinary medicine, that is bound to change, to embrace the
Sure.
change, that we're here to add to that tapestry. We're here to enrich that tapestry,
Mhm. Mhm.
with our own flavor, with our own distinctive service, but that we are part of the same community. we
Yeah.
are we we want the good for our industry and for the benefit of the pets. So I think that to be more the unity, that so diversity does not mean separation, is embracing our differences, yet united in a mission and our goals. So that's what I want all of them. And this month is just to highlight the beautiful achievements and the beautiful differences. But they're not to separate or to,
Yeah.
they're more to unite.
Yes, yes, yes. There is a overflow of talent and excellence across the spectrum, right? And
Yes.
we have an opportunity to embrace that. So, where can folks find more information about LVMA and support the work of the organization?
I'm glad that you said that because we are present in all social media. So you can go to latinxvma.org, and that is our website. But we are also in Instagram. So
Great,
if you can, reach us, look us up, and we definitely Instagram is very active during the month of Hispanic Heritage. We're going to have a lot of activities every week. So please look us up, and there's webinars, a lot of free activities, loteria night. There's a lot of really awesome activities all through and we're highlighting people.
yeah,
So
great,
when you look at and the companies that are really supporting us too. So when you look at our website or specifically our Instagram, you're gonna see it's going to constantly change and highlight. So it's very
great.
interesting. I highly invite everybody to join us.
Check it out. Great, great. And that Instagram handle, folks, is Latinx Vet. The handle for the Instagram is at Latinx Vet, all one word, lowercase. So be sure to check it out. Mitzi, it has been a pleasure having you on the show for this conversation. We are just so delighted that we could make this happen. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. And so this has been another episode of AAVMC's On Air podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the pod on your favorite podcast app and stay tuned. We will be back with another episode soon. Thank you.